right, friends, we're going to do our Bible story together, and we're still talking about Daniel. Remember, Daniel and his friends got brought from Judah. They were taken captive by Babylon, and they are now with King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon. Remember last time we talked about how they didn't want to eat the food that was in the king's table, and they said, can we just have veggies and water for 10 days and see if that's good? And it was, right? And they looked better and healthier than all the other people, and so they said, yep, you don't have to eat that food that was sacrificed to idols. You could just eat what you want. And God blessed them, and he gave them favor among the Babylonians. So it says that over the next few years, Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego all learned really well, and they worked really hard, and God gave them that favor. They were able to learn things, and they were able to understand things. They were able to help the king even sometimes. And so they were made to be wise, like a wise man, right? Sometimes they call them other names, but it was kind of like a wise man. So so they became wise men for King Nebuchadnezzar. Well, one night, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And this dream was a dream that he knew meant something, and he wanted to know. Now, take a pause. Does this remind you of the Pharaoh in Egypt and his dream and Joseph and all that? Does that remind you of this story? Because it reminds me of that story. So this is another foreign king and another dream and another Israelite who gets to help out. So King Nebuchadnezzar has this dream, and he calls his advisors and his wise men together. Now, for some reason, Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego aren't in the palace at this time. They must be out doing something else. But he calls the ones that were in the palace at this time together, and King Nebuchadnezzar says, I had a dream, and I need to know what it means. So they said, okay, King Nebuchadnezzar, tell us your dream, and we'll tell you what it means. And King Nebuchadnezzar says, nope, that's not how this is going to work this time. He says, you know what I would like? In order for me to know that you know what this dream means, and you're just not making something up and telling me a lie, I would like for you to tell me what I dreamt, and then for you to tell me what it means too. Now, the wise men said, King Nebuchadnezzar, you are a marvelous king. Don't get mad at us, but no one can do that. We don't know what you dreamt. We're not inside your brain. Said, tell us what your dream was, and we'll tell you what it means. And he said, no, I've made up my mind. You have to tell me what I dreamt and what it means. This is a problem, right? And so they said, we're sorry. We don't know. There's no way we can do that, King Nebuchadnezzar. So he says, well, then I'm going to have all my wise men killed. Now remember, we said King Nebuchadnezzar is not somebody you wanted to make mad, right? He gets mad and he does some kind of rash, not really good thinking things. So he sent out his guards, and he said, kill all my wise men and advisors. So the soldiers came up, and they found Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but and Daniel was on his own, and they said, I'm going to have to have you killed. You're going to have to come to the palace. The king wants to have you killed. Daniel's like, what is going on? Are you kidding? What's happening? So the soldier told Daniel about what was happening, and he said, well, let me go talk to the king. So he goes and he talks to King Nebuchadnezzar. He says, King Nebuchadnezzar, give me 1 day. Just wait and don't kill anybody yet. Give me a day, and I'll see if I can tell you what your dream means. So King Nebuchadnezzar says, okay, you have 1 day. So Daniel goes home, and he calls Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he says, guys, we have got to pray about this. The only way that we're going to be alive tomorrow is if God gives us this answer. So they pray, and they pray, and they pray, and that night, God tells Daniel about the dream and what it means. Hooray! And Daniel does something that, just like we've talked about other people doing in the Bible, like Mary and Moses and Miriam and a lot of people, is he sings a song. He has his own song of praise that he sings. And he says, he praises God, and he says, all wisdom comes from God. Blessing and honor comes from God. He knows. He changes the seasons. He changes the times. He sets up kings. He takes down kings. Everything is from God. And he knows what people dream, and he told me the king's dream. So he has a song about that he sings, and you could read about it if you want to in the book of Daniel. So he goes to King Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar says, so this is your day. Do you know what my dream is? And Daniel says, King, there is no one on earth that could know that. But God has told me and revealed to me what your dream is, so that you will know that he is the true God. And he wants you to know what's going to happen. So Daniel says, you had a dream of a statue, a tall statue, and the head was made of gold, and the chest was made of silver, and then the middle was made of bronze, and then the legs were made of iron, and then the feet were made of iron and clay. And while you were looking, a rock came out, and it knocked down the statue, and the rock became big. And that was your dream. And Nebuchadnezzar says, you're right, it is. And you have a paper like this in yours, except yours isn't colored yet. He said, that was my dream, Daniel. You are right. He says, and Daniel says, well, this is what it means. You are the head of gold, Babylon. Okay, but your power is going to come to an end soon. And then another group will take over, Medes and Persians. And they will be very mighty, but not quite as good as you were. And then another group will take over. That's the bronze, Greece. And then another group will take over, and they have some feet with some clay, which means they're kind of divided. And they won't last long because of that. But God wants you to know what's going to happen. So King Nebuchadnezzar says to Daniel, you are so wise. He says, I am going to make you one of my lead wise men. I'm going to put you in charge, and you're going to help lead. And you're going to be really a great leader for me. Now, does that remind you of Joseph and Egypt and things? It totally does, doesn't it? But this is the same thing that happened with Daniel. And so then Daniel said, well, my friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego all helped too. So I'd like to give them positions of honor too. So King Nebuchadnezzar says, okay. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are put in some different places in Babylon too to be leaders there. So you have this paper, and yours says color. Says this is a statue from Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So color it what it has. The head's made of gold. So I did kind of a yellow or gold. The chest and arms are made of silver. Stomach and upper legs were made of bronze. Now I didn't really have a bronze color, so I did a brown lightly with yellow over top. That kind of makes it look like bronze if you don't have a bronze color. Then we have iron. Now I just use a pencil so that it looked different than the silver. So I used a pencil for the iron, and then clay, and I used, from the clay, I kind of used a red and then a brown with it. So a brown and red together to make that clay look. So you're going to color this, and you could tell somebody else the story of the dream, and then take a picture of this and send it to us. And we'll talk a little bit more about Daniel next week.